our presentation. We are Maria, Clavel and Annika Werkman, and we're both English as foreign language teachers. And we would like to share our experiences with virtual exchanges and talk a bit more about the challenges and opportunities of that. But first, about the main title, I went to swimming pool at my school too. That was what I heard from my students when they were they had met your students, and we wanted to share a bit of the surprise with you via a small video.
Yeah.
Okay, look this swimming pool. Do you see?
Is it in your school?
We have a swimming pool in a school, and they were showing it like very proudly, and you know that's the reason why we chose.
Yeah.
Well, Annika chose that title. We thought it was really.
My students were completely surprised. They never expected that, and they want to visit Spain as well. Of
They're
course.
always welcome.
But for now, it's all a virtual exchange. We work together. I teach at Keizer College in Amstelveen, very close to Amsterdam. It's a boys and girls school, and we offer project education for those students interested. And we are a UNESCO school, so we try to do our bit, helping with the SDGs. And my students are 30 to 15 years old. With an A2 to B1+ level of English, many of them with an expert family background, and they were really enthusiastic participating.
And we have exactly the opposite, which is a school in Valencia. It's like 5 minutes away from here, literally. And it's a charter school. It means that it's, public funded, but also like a private part. We know it's concertada in Spanish. And it's a girls' school, which was quite worrying for us at the beginning, because we thought about, boys, girls, but, it was amazing. It worked perfectly, so no worries. And our school has a big focus on languages, especially English, but we also have German and French, and obviously Valenciano, which is our, regional language. And ICT, so it was perfect because, we work with iPads, and it's all ICT, it was great. And there, our group was third year, it was third FSM. They were 14 and 15-year-olds. And the challenging part for us was that we had 60 students, and from Annika's side, it was 30. So we had to pair them up correctly, or it could be a mess. But I think we did a good job.
It worked out well. Yeah, it did.
So I'm going to go through this quite quickly, because it's quite obvious. The objectives of this project is for them to communicate. That's it. And yesterday, they were recorded in the school, and they were saying, in the classroom, we don't like to talk to you because you're an adult, and we don't have anything to share with you. It's just grammar and vocab. I felt very disappointed, by the way, but it's okay. I'm used to it. And they said, and we had the opportunity to talk to teenagers like us and share the same interests, like TikTok. I mean, I know what TikTok is, but they know better than me, and they love to talk about those things. So the language objectives are quite clear. Talk, communicate, share experiences. And obviously, that's what they mention as well, culture. They love to know about, other people's culture. And we are quite lucky in my school because they can afford to go abroad, but, not everyone can. So I guess it's a really good opportunity for all of us teachers to give them the opportunity to meet other people from other countries, and as Christy said before, just take the chance to give them the opportunity to know other people, diversity, and if we know each other better, not these things that are happening at the moment would happen. So I think it's really good, and it's a cultural, obviously, everything is about communication and culture. And Annika, that's you.
I would take over here. So about the pedagogical design, it was all about task-based learning. So we designed 3 tasks with a pre-task, a task, main task, and a post-task, and they got more complex along the way. And it was all about the communicative approach, as you just told us. I mean, we can do reading and listening in class as well, but this was the most perfect opportunity for our students to become active language users, and that was our shared goal. So we had to prepare them for this, of course. We had to guide them through the digital aspects and help them using the BBB rooms, for example, and also being aware of sharing information online. We had to talk with them about the intercultural aspects and help them to be open-minded and understanding to things that were new to them. And finally, about also the communicative aspects, because all of them are not proficient learners. They're still along the way and they still have to deal with the fact that they sometimes don't understand or don't manage to get their message across and how to go about it. So the groups were paired up, mostly one Dutch students with 2 or 3 Spanish students because they were with more. They met about once a month, and so we as teachers worked very closely together, and we still are, and we were all guided through the process by Christy, which was very, very helpful. So we met for each task, and we evaluated each task, and this year we're trying to do better and improve along the way.
We're learning.
Yeah.
So let's go to the point, which is the tasks, and is what they really enjoy doing. So the first task that Annika mostly designed was called Getting to Know Each Other. So the goal was for them to introduce themselves to the partner, like in our case, the Dutch partner. And we used a PowerPoint because there were so many things to tell them that we created the PowerPoint as a reminder of us to what to tell them. And then, if they, like visual learners, they saw what they had to do, like how do you get to Moodle? I will show it to you later and you will see it. And it gave us peace of mind because there were so many things that we had to do. And then we used Padlet as well, so they could write and introduce themselves by writing. So we were using speaking and writing, you know. We obviously assessed the writing and we gave them a grade, which is very important for them. And then we used BBB when they had the actual exchange. For us, because it was the first task, the challenges were how to pair them up. I mean, if the pairing up was good or not, and we did it on levels. So because we thought, you know, if you pair up B1 student with an A2, they're going to feel like I'm not going to say anything because, you know, my English is not that good. I think it worked perfectly. And the internet connection, that was the main issue sometimes. Like in my school, everything was ready. And then Wi-Fi just went down. And I was like, I can't believe it. So I had to, like, you know, send an email to Annika and to Christy, we can't do it today. But, you know, this happens and you need to be prepared for that. And, you know, technology is amazing, but sometimes it fails. So just, you know, go with plan B and that's it. So this is the PowerPoint that we created and we showed the students and we uploaded on Classroom so they had everything there. And for us, it was a reminder of everything we had to say, like, change your password, because they have to change it the first time they go on Moodle. And this is the BB room, and these are the groups. Go in your BB room. So, you know, everything was there, and it was for us quite easy not to forget anything important. The headphones, that's really important. Because, you know, background noise can be annoying sometimes, but, you know, so everything was there. The form. If you don't bring the form, you won't participate. I was like, but it's there. So, you know, and obviously remind them that what they're doing is meaningful and it has, you know, a purpose. So, yeah, smile, be nice. And they were nice to each other. And that was really good because it's communicating with someone from another country, another culture. And it was really good. This is when they had to introduce themselves. They didn't know the pairing, that they had the partner, so they were introducing themselves, and then they had to interact and say, oh, you're going to be my partner. And, you know, like very creative stuff. And they were, if you asked them to do some writing, it's like, ugh. But then because they had to do this, they were like very motivated, and it was completely different. Like the outcome was really good. And this is something that we like to show you, to see like how they were exchanging and talking about negotiation of meaning. Like, okay, we're saying this, you don't understand, but it's a really nice video. Let's see what you think.
Tim, can you talk us a little bit of your idiom?
¿My what? Sí, pero que habla él.
Can you talk us a little bit of your idiom?
I don't understand the last word. What is your idiom? Wait.
Yes.
Can you talk us in your idiom?
What's idiom?
Your language. Your language.
Oh, language. What do you want me to say?
So they were like, because they got really excited. They don't look like that, but they were excited. So they were thinking in Spanish, and they were like, idiom. And they were like saying, no, it's not idiom, it's language. So that's really good, because it's like, you have to improvise, you have to communicate. And even if it's not right, they didn't care. It was like, okay, I really want to know what that sounds like. That's what they wanted. But yeah, it was very nice. And task 2 is Annika.
Yeah, so after they got to know each other a bit better, we wanted them to get to know each other's schools. So first of all, we asked them to make a presentation as a pre-task about their schools, and the real task that was then to present their PowerPoints to each other via B2B video calling. This, of course, was a bit of a challenge because they had to get used to the technology, but all in all, it was very interesting because they filled in a form. And in this form, next slide, they came up with lots of similarities and differences. And we also asked them to think about preferences to prime them a bit for the third task. And the post task was to write about their conclusions. So one of the examples, the second from right, is the similarities that we noticed about our school are that we both start at 8:30 and that both our schools have been renovated. The differences are that you guys have a pool at your school, that your school building is bigger, and that your school is all girls, and then, we don't have a pool, and boys and girls, and so on. So, when we, these responses on the Padlet really help us also to see what they take away from these video call moments, and they were really rich, and they really helped our students to engage and participate actively. So the third task was about designing the most perfect and ideal school. So they could use the preferences they came up with during the second task, but they could also come up with new ideas. And it was a very creative task. Students liked doing this. So they talked about their ideal school together at the BBB rooms again. But after that, they had to make a presentation and present it to their own class. So they had to tell about the conversation they had with the other students that they were paired up with, and presented it to their own students, and they of course had to listen and give some feedback and so on. So we have this lovely example that we would like to share with you.
Hi, we are Sol and Carla, and we are going to talk about how would be our ideal school.
At first, we're going to say our ideas that we have in common with our partner Jessie, that are a short-term timetable,
that each class would last 30 minutes,
and you can practice any sports that you like, as hockey, golf, basket.
Now we are going to talk about some different ideas that Sol and I have thought.
Our ideas are no classes in the afternoons, 1 hour of break, a canteen, not so many exams, and more projects to learn easily. Also, we would like to wear polo instead of a shirt.
Those are Jesse's ideas.
So yes, is my student.
His ideal school would start at 10 a.m. and would finish at 3 p.m. There would be games instead of homework, free food at the canteen, and if you have done the homework, you can skip the lesson. That's the end.
Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, it was really good. They were like very creative. They were like some of my students designed the logo, the story of the founder of the school, and even like the anthem of the school. I was like, what? If you ask them to do that, they would say, but because it was like, joined ideas and stuff like that, it worked really well. Do's and don'ts. So this is because we thought that if you are starting the project, we're not experts at all, but this is what worked for us and what didn't. So you have to work with students in the classroom before the actual virtual exchange. They have to know how to log in, how to get there. You can't do it the moment that they are doing it, because then the virtual exchange will disappear. You have to be prepared for an eventuality, like no Wi-Fi. That's it. So, okay, you can postpone it, or, do something else. You have to be prepared for that. And then meeting regularly with a coach and with your partner. And we were very lucky because, you know, we worked together really well with the other teachers as well. And you have to be careful because not everyone is just to use the internet and, you know, like log in and stuff like that. So teach them how to do it. Don't expect that because they're young, they're teenagers, they will know how to do everything, because some of them don't. And especially with us girls, some of them, like, they don't really like technology. The don'ts, it's don't expect your students to know how to, you know, like they can't talk and that's it. No, you have to prepare them like with the tasks, the pre-tasks, and, you know, everything has to be said before, because if not, they will be like Christy said before, like, how are you? Okay. Do you like English? Yes. And have you been to? Yeah, no. So they need to have something to talk, and that has to be prepared before. And don't forget that your students that have to do, like, bring your headphones. It's not just once. You have to say it many, many times, because they tend to forget things.
Remind your password. But even
Exactly. Like, write it down. Have it ready, because they forget. They're teenagers. They tend to forget about these things. And then that you have to, don't forget that, to communicate openly about your expectations and difficulties. Like, we want you to do this, but if you can't talk or you can't understand your partner, like the idiom thing, it's okay. You know, they are not like bilingual students. They are people like you learning English. So I think, yeah, this is do's and don'ts, and we hope that we have helped you for your future projects, and thank you very much for listening to us.
Good afternoon. Okay, I can see my colleague Mayte over there, right? Oh, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Alfredo Ibáñez, Chilabert, and I have been collaborating with these guys here since Tecola, yeah? And that gave me a perspective of eLive not only as a language tool, but also as added value with pedagogical changes from my school. So that's the reason why last year, at the beginning of the course, Begoña and Barry told me that there was going to be a new edition of eLive this time. And I started preparing my students from the very beginning, since September, because I didn't want them just to go there and do what these girls were saying, what do you have to tell me, right? I wanted them to work on some contents and made the most of it, not only to have the opportunity of have a spontaneous conversation, but also prepare a parallel curricula, if that was possible. So I am going to try to explain why I think eLive is a perfect tool to achieve this objective, the objective from moving from talking to language creation, right? So moving from here to here. This is what we all want, yeah? And these are some of the features, I think, that are very important from eLive. That one of them is that it creates a safe environment. You have the possibility of having synchronous and asynchronous communication, working with visual support. That sets the students in a mood that is not aggressive for them, and they feel that they are willing to communicate. For the teachers, it allows planning and scaffolding the information, as we will see in the following example I will show you. Also interesting is multimodal communication. I think this is something that it's an added value too, because students are communicating not only orally, but also making use of other resources synchronously, as they can, for example, search or Google ideas. At the same time, they are searching for words, dictionary. There is a kind of multimodal or random way of working, which is very holistic for students. Also, as was mentioned before, intercultural topics are key for these projects, and they end up creating communities of practice so that the students belong to a group and create new links. Something that new experts call like extimacy, the difference between us and them, and then we come all we, yeah? And as I said before, my aspiration is to be able to create a joint curriculum in the future with some schools. So I think eLive is ideal for task-based projects, as the one I started last year with my students, because it allows you, as I said, synchronous and asynchronous communication, also plan ahead, and you can set long-term goals, which is something more than the mere fact of having a spontaneous conversation. This is what I think. And you can also track the students' progress throughout a year. So here in my slide, you can see the 3 types of interactions the students can have in eLive. All of them are equally valid, yeah, and you can use them at the same time. But I will go for the second 2, clear task-based projects, and my aspiration is in the future be able to join a curriculum or part of the curriculum with another school. And I think we are up to it. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit what was my last year like, because as I said, I started preparing my students in October, but we didn't actually start with eLive until the end of April. So then I thought, well, so BB and VR are not the only resources in Tekola. Let's work with Padlet. And I developed a project called 100 Everyday Chores to Stop Global Warming. And I set my students in the mood that they will present the project to the Dutch students in the future, as we did, yeah? That gave me a way out to be working on eLive when eLive was not still open, yeah? But I was working on it, yeah? So at the end of April, beginning of May, we had 2 different types of interactions or associations, one with Quart, which is my school, and the Linge, Mayte School in the Netherlands, and another with Jana, with Quart, and a miscellaneous group of students from Ukraine, which I think you explained and talked about it this morning, right? The experience I'm going to talk about is the one I had with Quart and the Linge, because it is the one that is connected with my task-based project. How did we structure the activities to start a project in eLive? So I started with a school project integrated in the curriculum. It is the one I told you, 100 Everyday Chores to Stop Global Warming, and we worked that through CLIL, yeah? That means that not only me, but the rest of the teachers at my school were also involved in the project. We were working science in English, history in English, ethics in English, of course, other languages like Valencia in English. We were working English as a vehicular language. What we did is we worked on these topics, we created surveys, and we uploaded all the material on Padlet. So that when I started with Mayte, of course, Mayte had her own ideas, and I said, don't worry, we can do both things, your ideas and my ideas, because eLive allows to do that, and we managed to do it. So Mayte proposed to me, she had other ideas because she had a group of students who were studying Spanish. So we did a tandem group and a lingua franca group. And it worked very well because normally in Spain, the students who don't speak English very well are the ones who do the telecollaboration Spanish, and this empowers the weaker students, right? And to me, it was like opening a window into education for those students. So I want to highlight the fact that this is not only a language tool, it is much more than that. It is also a strong pedagogical tool. Okay, so following with the structure, we uploaded the content on Padlet. Then the Dutch students could access the content and knew what the content was about, so that when we started the presentation, there was like a sort of interview, which was a very safe environment for my students who were a lower level than my students, because my students were 15 years old, yours were 17. Mine were A2 plus, yours were B1 plus. So I made the most of these interviews so that there was like a sort of a framework. And eventually, students will enter into other sections of communication, as we will see later, which is what I say here is language creation. How did we do that? Well, I'm going to talk about an exchange we have that I have divided in 6 sections, right? Because the students started talking, as they were saying before, like robots, yeah? Just reading out their PowerPoints without any soul, not knowing what to do. And Begoña and I, we were in the background, and I remember that once the presentation finished, Begoña gave a sort of input scaffolding, saying something like, I'm going to try to see if this can open. No, it can't. So Begoña said something like, after my students talk about their 100 measures to stop global warming, they were quiet, not knowing what to do. And Begoña said something like, well, maybe the Dutch students would like to talk about the measures they have to save the planet in their country, because do you return your bottles after you drink? And that was a turning point in the conversation, right? Since that moment, the Dutch students started giving evidence, which is what I name here as expansion. They expanded their conversation, made it easy for the Spanish students, and prompted them asking, do you guys separate your trash? From that very moment, my Spanish students had to forget about their notes and start creating language. And this is what they did, using in the process things like translanguaging, which is trying to look for ways to make communication going on, negotiation of meaning. And they found their own ways. The Dutch students became like a sort of guide, and by the end of the exchange, the number of interactions between the Spanish students and the Dutch had equaled. Yeah? So they were the same. And I think this is all thanks to the fact that you cannot expect your students talking all of a sudden if you don't structure the activities and if you don't give them some input. To this respect, I find Padlet a very interesting tool because it allows the students to plan what they are going to say and not go blank at the beginning of a conversation. Afterwards, with the help of teachers that can introduce what I write here, hot input, just high order thinking skill, tell me about your life, tell me what this is relevant to you. They start using the language as a vehicular tool and not as a way of parroting. Yeah? Eventually, teachers can remove input and let the students go free. And you can see here in section C how they started creating their own topics, like, can you use mobile phones at your school? At this stage, we let the students talk for 10 minutes, and they kept on talking, finding their own ways. So if you want your students to use the language creatively, we must provide them a framework in the first place, synchronous and asynchronous exchange, and input scaffolding that can be removed afterwards. Yeah. Before the conclusions, I want to show you some data I have stored here about what were the interactions like. I am working on a tool to, I don't know if you can see this. This is a tool to track students or users' interaction when they are working online. And it tracks the complexity of utterances, the language functions, the learner fit, meaning whether the activities are cognitively demanding or undemanding for the students, if they are able to do them. Negotiation of meaning, language skills use, cognitive skills, and competencies. In this particular exchange we had, you can see the 6 cuts, and you can see the increase in the complexity of utterances, the functions, negotiation of meaning, as you left the students talk by themselves. Yeah? Once you removed the input scaffolding, the quality of their interactions were closer to creation than to parroting. You can see this better in this other graph I have here. Here you can see the 6 sections, and there's a lot of acronyms here that stands for authentic communication, high order thinking skill, cultural openness, communities of practice, and so forth. So what I wanted to show you here is how the quality of what the students were saying on the eLife platform increased in terms of high order thinking skills once teachers provided the correct scaffolding. Yeah? So if you want your students to be successful, I recommend you to create a framework they can use and have the students in the backstage providing this kind of input, because we are the only ones who can guide them into language creation. Otherwise, we run the risk of having a wonderful platform that is only used to say, hello, how are you? How do you say that in English, right? So we can do much more with eLife. We can create projects, and we can aim at creating joint curricula as well. So, conclusions. In my experience, eLife fosters students' language acquisition. It promotes shared curricula. It triggers high-order thinking skills, and it creates communities of practice that can last for a lifetime. And I don't know how I am doing with time, but 3 minutes. Okay, so this is enough for me. If you want to ask any questions or... Okay, they told me not to do it very long, so I think I did it right? Okay, so thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Goedemiddag. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. As you can see, and as Christy said, our presentation is going to be in Spanish, but we will make a short introduction in English also. So we first want to say thank you very much for having us. We also want to say that all the day and all these presentations were very inspiring, super inspiring, and that we are not going to talk about tasks. We're going to talk about impressions, sensations, motivation, and we will describe our journey through this wonderful world of e-life. So, here we go. Érase una vez dos profesoras aquí presentes que venían de países muy distintos, muy lejanos entre sí, y que se encontraron con una larva. Una larva, diréis, sí, era una larva recién nacida en forma de proyecto e-life. Y entonces esas dos profesoras querían aportar su granito de arena al mundo de la educación y dijeron, ¿cómo lo vamos a hacer?
¿Y por qué este mundo? Pues porque las dos coincidíamos con que la educación representaba el símbolo de transformación constante y era el mejor lugar donde su larva podía llevar a cabo el proceso de metamorfosis.
Alguien, aquí presente, les propuso un reto y se encontraron en un cruce de caminos. Podían elegir la pastilla roja o la azul de Matrix, el camino de la izquierda o el camino de la derecha. El camino de la izquierda era un camino de confort, estaban cómodas allí, tenían un mogollón de papeleo que hacer en el cole, como todos sabéis, y dijeron, uff, nos quedamos aquí. Pero luego estaba también el camino de la derecha, the unknown, the unexpected. ¿Nos lanzamos al vacío con paracaídas, con Christy echándonos una mano, o seguimos aquí? Bueno, está claro cuál elegimos, ¿verdad? Estamos aquí, elegimos el número 2.
Y después de mucha dedicación, pero también muchas dudas, arrancó el proceso. Sin una buena coordinación y comunicación, esta evolución no habría sido exitosa, pero esta larva necesitaba unas condiciones óptimas. Y hablábamos de ideas, tareas, sensibilización, planificación, horarios, ajustes, autorización de papás y mamás y condiciones técnicas adecuadas. Y
muchas ganas.
Muchas
ganas. Era fundamental tener muchas ganas.
Muchas ganas.
Para que la larva se convirtiera en oruga, nótese que nos hemos documentado sobre el tema fenomenal. Nótese. Necesitaban poner en marcha un ejército de alumnos y fuimos donde los alumnos y les dijimos, hola, tenemos esta larva, este proyectito. ¿Y cuáles fueron sus reacciones? Pues estas.
¿Y si no me entienden?
¿Y si no me entienden?
Ay, yo no puedo.
Ay, yo no puedo.
Ay, qué nervios.
Ay, qué nervios. Pero...
¡Qué guay!
¡Qué guay! También, ¿no? Estos estudiantes se tenían que poner de acuerdo y tenían que emprender un viaje para comunicarse con otros estudiantes de otras realidades distintas virtualmente y lo tenían que hacer encima en 2 idiomas, en castellano y en inglés.
Las orugas se adaptaron a 2 hábitats muy diferentes y allí se convirtieron en crisálidas. Palabra que también hemos aprendido nosotras.
Hemos aprendido muchísimo.
Eran 2 entornos fáciles, atractivos y cómodos, donde enseguida se sintieron acogidos. Y ya no había nervios.
¡Ay! ¡Ya no hay nervios! Hábitat número 1, Chatterdale. Lo habéis mostrado esta mañana también. prepararon sus avatars, diseñaron sus avatars y se metieron en las aulas de audio. Estas son algunas imágenes. Por desgracia no pudimos recuperar las grabaciones, pero se oían cosas como...
¡Ay, qué risa!
¡Ay, qué risa!
¡Qué nervios en el estómago!
¡Qué nervios en el estómago! No sé si lo oís. ¿Lo oís? ¿Sí?
¿Me escuchas? Ah, sí, ya le veo. Es un chico.
Y en privado continuaron en sus salas de audios. Como este environment era, bueno, muy sencillo porque no tenían que poner la cámara, se encontraron muy cómodos. Dijeron, bueno, es estupendo para empezar. Pero a la vez, como Bart comentaba esta mañana, les surgió una curiosidad por conocer a sus compañeros de una manera más presencial, ¿no? ¿Quiénes son estos que están detrás de la pantalla, ¿no? Estos avatars. Y, bueno, pues decidieron adentrarse en un hábitat más arriesgado, más expuesto.
Sí, y así hicimos uso también de BBB. Allí el encuentro fue más personal, por supuesto. Esta es una foto de mis alumnas en Linge durante todo un recreo. No conseguí despegarlas de los alumnos de Lore porque, bueno, empezaron con la charla y no podían parar. Demasiada curiosidad. Y así, las crisálidas intentaron adaptarse y sobrevivir a este nuevo hábitat. Tuvieron un encuentro en parejas muy chulo y en la plataforma de BBB incluso llegaron a sentirse cómodos. Oíamos risas, oíamos bromas, oíamos todo lo que no formaba parte de nuestra tarea. O sea, rompieron nuestras estructuras y la tarea. Se dieron cuenta de que podían comunicarse bastante bien y de cuántas cosas tenían en común sus culturas. Ya no les daba pudor, esas arriesgadas crisálidas pasaron a ser simples mariposas en el estómago.
¡Vaya sensación!
Pero por supuesto, claro, como en todas partes, ¿no? Todo este viaje tiene impedimentos y los impedimentos son pues muchísimos, sobre todo energía y tiempo y energía, que es lo que nos falta a los profesores muchas veces. Nos apoyábamos tanto personalmente como profesionalmente, como en la parte emocional, que muchas veces es fundamental, ¿no? Hoy en día. Y bueno, y continuamos con el viaje. Teníamos además que seguir explicando a nuestros alumnos que era importante seguir en el proyecto, cuáles eran los objetivos, como comentabais los compañeros, ¿no? Qué tipo de conducta tenían que tener en estas situaciones. Y tuvimos también obstáculos del siglo XXI, como el famoso firewall, ¿no? Que es tan útil en clase, tan útil en las escuelas para intentar bueno, preservar el dominio escolar, pero tan complicado de saltar, ¿no? Pero bueno, eso también lo resolvimos.
También eso lo resolvimos. Y bueno, ya pensaréis, ¿y estas dos colas mariposas? Estamos hablando de sensaciones y estamos hablando de cambio, proceso, metamorfosis. Las mariposas empezaron a volar.
Y nosotros a saltar, como veis ahí.
Y nosotros a saltar. En muchas culturas, escuchad esto bien, la mariposa es un símbolo de transformación. La larva, aquella pequeñita larva, llega a ser una hermosa mariposa solo cuando durante su viaje conoce sus motivaciones, como nosotras y nuestros alumnos. Se reconoce en todo su potencial, que puedo llegar a ser, que puedo llegar a conseguir. Se enfrenta a sus miedos, porque lo hicieron nuestros alumnos.
Y nosotras también.
Se atreve a experimentar. Confía en el camino del aprendizaje y lucha contra los prejuicios, que es algo que queremos desenmascarar con este proyecto. Y al final se echa a volar. Y bueno, estas citas que nos hemos traído son ejemplos de testimonios de nuestros alumnos. Os leo. Tanto la experiencia en inglés como la de español fueron bien. El inglés iba más fácil. Eran alumnos con un nivel B1, B2. En español tuvimos que hacer un gran esfuerzo pero pensamos que aprendimos mucho así. Yo soy profesora de español, mis alumnos llevaban aquí aproximadamente 5 meses estudiando la lengua, entonces estaban en un nivel A1, dirección A2. En sus testimonios y grabaciones que hemos escuchado a posteriori decían nos faltaba vocabulario y nos faltaban expresiones auténticas, espontáneas, para reaccionar. Y también eso ha sido aprendizaje para mí, como profesora. O sea, ¿cómo puedo reforzarles en situaciones auténticas que no me ofrece un libro?
Eso es así. Más testimonios. Hemos aprendido mucho sobre las fiestas del País Vasco, fundamental, eso es fundamental. Y cómo hablar también de forma espontánea, porque es que somos muy pesados los profes en clase. Venga con la gramática y el present simple y el continuous. ¿Y dónde está la espontaneidad? Que luego nos vamos a Inglaterra o a cualquier país anglosajón y no sabemos pedir el pan, ¿no? Espontáneo. Qué bonito, ¿no? Qué bonita la palabra. Es muy divertido e interesante comunicarse con otra gente, es authentic, auténtico y muy diferente a aprender gramática. Es divertido aplicar lo que aprendes en clase. Authentic, spontaneous, apply. So going beyond the walls, the limits of the classroom and applying what we have learned. That is what makes learning and teaching processes meaningful.
Y esta nos gusta especialmente, una cita también de uno de los alumnos que dijo, hablar con alguien es la mejor forma de aprender una lengua. Al hablar, escuchad esta última parte, lo que dices tiene más sentido.
What you're saying makes more sense, making sense.
O sea, el para qué aprendo, para qué.
Y estos son diferentes testimonios de los alumnos, pero ¿y nosotras? Aquí estamos. Empezamos virtualmente y después nos conocimos. Maite estaba de vacaciones y decidió hacer un pequeño stop para conocer las fiestas del País Vasco, que son fundamentales, como os he dicho. Y vino en julio a conocernos, a conocerme, y nos sacamos esta foto. Igual que las millones de fotos que nos hemos sacado esta semana, pues parece que llevamos una semana, ¿no? Estos 2 días con vosotros, con todos los compañeros, porque realmente eLife hace que tejamos relaciones, ¿no? Hace que podamos tener diferentes relaciones duraderas, europeas y cada vez más. Y cada vez la mariposa vuela más alto y más lejos. Ups, perdón.
Sensaciones, de eso se trataba nuestra presentación y acabamos con una última cita, esta. También hemos tenido que hacer investigación para aprender sobre la vida de la mariposa.
Es fundamental.
Las mariposas son símbolo de perseverancia y resiliencia, puesto que recorren un largo camino hasta alcanzar su meta. Y resume el porqué de esa metáfora, esta frase, esa meta que hemos alcanzado no solo las profesoras, sino también nuestros coordinadores, que han trabajado duro y nos han apoyado siempre, gracias. Y también los alumnos, por supuesto, los grandes héroes de esta historia, porque también ellos han roto con todas esas barreras y han conseguido alcanzar su meta. Entonces,
empezábamos la presentación diciendo, érase una vez, y como todo cuento, debería ser, y colorín colorado, ¿no? Este cuento se ha acabado, pero preferimos decir que... ¿Qué preferimos decir?
Continuará.
Muchas gracias.